Welcome to Distracted, the podcast with Angela Lockwood, the place where you will find practical brain-boosting strategies, expert insights, and real-life stories to help busy brains thrive in the age of distraction. Let's go. Welcome to Distracted. I'm Angela Lockwood. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am really interested in the way that we work and how it is changing and evolving so rapidly. And one of the ways that I'm seeing our workplaces evolve rapidly is a lot of people relying on offshore staff. And I'm hearing a lot through my clients, through when I'm coaching them, the overwhelm and the distraction that they are feeling like they often have to do it on their own is really impacting on their ability to focus and be productive. And so what I thought today is that I would go straight to the source. I would go straight to the CEO of People Partners, which is Reuben Brennan. He's going to be chatting to me today about how he manages a global company who really specializes in offshore staffing solutions, and how, if you are a busy exec who's thinking, I need help, how can you do that? And what are some of the things that you need to be aware of? So, Ruben, thanks so much for joining us here on Distracted.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Ange. And so glad we can do this today.
Yeah, look, I thought, how you often have people ask questions and you go, I'm not actually sure how to expertly answer that. So let's just go straight to the source. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking today. If I can ask you a lot of the questions that I'm being asked from my clients, and hopefully you can help them out much better than what I can.
absolutely. Try my best.
So tell us a little bit. So offshore staffing solutions. Now, I know a lot of people have in their mind that, that it's, I guess, what it is, but can you just dispel the myth? What is it that offshore staffing solutions in? Where do you go? How do people tap into it? And tell us all about the work that People Partners do.
Yeah, sure. So I think offshore staffing is obviously a bit of a catch-all for, I suppose, anyone conducting work that is not onshore. I suppose how we approach offshore staffing solutions is through a lens of more holistic workforce reengineering. And so, what we look at is how work is currently being prosecuted by the workforce in the organisation, and how is the responsibility shared across the different roles in the organisation? Because typically, what we find as organisations grow, they have a tendency to duplicate incumbent roles over and over again. And so, what seems to happen is tasks aggregate to roles and they start swell. And so responsibilities increase for individual roles. And then what we do is when we grow, we get another person and then we teach them all these broad amount of things. And then we get another person, we teach them all these broad amount of things. And so roles swell, onboarding is hard, responsibilities become so extensive that job satisfaction is really challenging. And so typically that's often when we will get called in. There's some levels of dysfunction in the workforce. Maybe they're struggling to retain talent. Maybe they're struggling to attract talent. Maybe people are just generally dissatisfied in the roles. And we often get pulled in to look at, okay, well, how could we re-engineer this workforce for greater efficiency and, of course, greater profitability, but ultimately to yield a happier workforce as well. And so typically what that it looks at like is having a look at all the responsibilities and tasks at any given role and looking at, okay, well, how can we maximize the happiness, productivity of the onshore staff by looking at how we could delegate down to offshore staff some of those responsibilities that might not be in their passion zone, in their strength zone. And so we will look to work with the organisation to recraft, I suppose, those roles into different position descriptions. And then once we've got a really good, meaty amount of responsibilities, we'll craft it into an offshore role that we will then recruit and on board for the organisation to work with that specialised offshore talent in a sort of full-time dedicated capacity. They're committed to the company's vision and their mission and fulfilling responsibilities exclusively for that company. But because it's offshore, it obviously gives access to a much bigger global workforce and obviously dealing with different economies. So obviously the cost of living in some of the places, we've got offices in the Philippines and South Africa. So obviously the cost of living in some of those areas is significantly less. And so that allows some difference in economies of that allow up to 70% labour savings, essentially, through tapping into that global workforce.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is businesses that are looking to scale would be one group of clients that you would have. Would that be right? That people who
Definitely.
are going, "Hey, we're doing things really well, but we want to scale this."
Yes. So businesses looking to scale, but obviously we've got a really diverse client base, from solopreneurs who are facing overwhelm and figuring out, how do I handle my day-to-day responsibilities better, right through to publicly listed companies who have got, thousands in their workforce, who are looking at how they can structure their organization better. So I suppose we would support a workforce of any size. Whether that workforce is one or thousands, it's still a workforce that's prosecuting responsibilities in a bid to achieve a vision, achieve some goals that the organisation aspires to realise.
Mm. You touched on it briefly around overwhelm. So sometimes the people who might be looking at growing their staff or growing their team could be in that sense of overwhelm. What are some of the challenges that you're hearing in the current work climate, no matter what scale? Are some of those challenges that business owners or people in organisations are currently feeling?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's the overwhelm is a massive challenge right across the employment landscape at the moment. And I think at its heart, we've sort of had, in this post-COVID particularly, a real labour shortage in a lot of areas. So a lot of employers are struggling to attract the talent they need. And so what invariably tends to happen is they're often operating a little bit short-staffed, and so incumbent staff aggregate more responsibility to try and patch the holes and gaps. And so what we've really seen is a swelling of typical roles to absorb more and more and more responsibilities. But that has a tax in that, and that tax comes in, what can manifest as staff feeling overwhelmed, and then that has ripple effects into attendance and tenure, and all manner of cultural challenges as well that can manifest in that environment. So it is a real challenge, and it's not just in our experience. At least we have clients across Australia, Singapore, US, and Canada, and it's across all of those developed economies that are finding the exact same challenge at the moment.
Isn't that interesting? It doesn't matter where you're from; those issues are pretty common. That they're
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, I'm really interested. So I know that some people would be thinking, okay, offshore, does that take work from people who are local? And I know for me, I've had nearly over 10 years of having an offshore employee
Mm,
from different organisations, and so I'm very well aware of the benefit of it. But
yeah.
I guess what's the hesitation of some businesses who are thinking, I've got this really strong culture, or I'm doing it all on my own. How can I trust someone that I've actually never met sitting side by side with me? What are your thoughts around that, and sort of how do you dispel some of those fears for business owners?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's a really interesting dilemma, and I think a lot of it comes down to the leader. And are they? And I often describe this: are they a somewhere leader, or are they an anywhere leader? A somewhere leader will often prioritize leading in a particular location. They want to see people under their nose and be able to direct, lead, guide, sit shoulder to shoulder and show and demonstrate. Or are they an anywhere leader, whereby you could be anywhere in the world, I can be anywhere in the world, and I'm very comfortable setting KPIs, keeping accountabilities in a remote fashion. So a lot of it does come down to the leader of the organisation, but it's not to suggest that a somewhere leader can't thrive with offshore staffing. They'll just typically need a lot more support in how they look at arranging task delegation and building in accountability, so that there's that transparency and comfort, I suppose, that productivity is occurring, and they've developed that over time, that trust can ensue. And we've got lots and lots of clients who have been very apprehensive, who might dip their toes into offshore staffing to see, okay, how do I how do I handle this myself? And it's as much as anything else a test of the offshore staff member as there's a test of their own leadership skills about how do I maintain a relationship, maintain accountability over what is a larger geographical span that I'm used to. And so I think there's lots of practical tools around task management and accountability regarding the throughput of tasks that people are doing. But then I think a huge, huge part of it is communication. And where we would look to hold a hand and support our clients is around setting them up for success in how they communicate with their offshore staff member. So tapping them into rhythms that they might ordinarily pursue with their onshore staff. So whether that be daily huddles, end of day catch ups, weekly meetings, some those stand up rhythms that organisations might have in with their onshore office based team, making sure that they're providing for that same opportunity for their offshore staff. So looking to replicate it, and even if it's right through to the the water cooler moments of being able to have the idle chit chat, being able to set up those mechanisms, whether it be a Teams channel or a Slack channel, where you can share gifts or jokes or have a bit of a share what you're going up to on the weekend, or having some informal, Friday afternoon, grab a drink and we'll share some time together. So making an opportunity to still bridge the divide with some of those things that connect us, but just being able to do it remotely.
Hmm. I know over COVID there was a lot of memes that came up of people just logging on, there was like one of Homer Simpson, like with
Yeah.
his glasses on, he's actually asleep, but made him
Yeah.
look like he's awake. And teams who are working remotely, they've put a fake screen up to show that they're there when they're outside doing other fun things. For people who are feeling a bit apprehensive about going,
Yeah.
how can I trust that people are there doing the work that I need? Because we are from a culture of needing to make sure people are doing their work, that it's a clock on, clock off, you're there, you're present. How can we change some of that mindset for people to go, actually, to be effective and be really productive in a workplace? It isn't about watching the clock, it's
Yeah.
about output. What are some of the ways that we as people partners encourage their organizations to instill that, but
Yeah.
also maybe educate people to go, hey, it's not really like that. People aren't forcing, or aren't sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. It's 100%. It's one of the largest hesitations we have with organisations, feeling that how do I know this person I'm employing on the other side of the world is going to be doing the right thing? And so, and I think a big part of it, um, there has to be a first step of trust. That is then reciprocated by the team member they're working with. Now, many organisations and people partners being one of those as well, we will obviously look to put in a lot of safety mechanisms for employers as well, right through from you know how biometrically clocking in, clocking out, productivity monitoring, all these sorts of things we will do to help the peace of mind of our clients. But more importantly, we'll help them through our pre-onboarding figure out, okay, well, how are they going to look at that task delegation? How are they going to measure the productivity of staff in terms of the throughput of tasks and accomplishments they're going to be doing? How is the team member going to be reporting back what they're realizing and achieving in any given unit of time or day? So that that comfort can quickly ensue. And I think for many of our clients, a relationship starts very optimistic but cautious, but very quickly transcends into, oh my goodness, these are such a valued member of my team. And so now I'm absolutely trusting them. I'm scaling my team, and looking to lean into the relationship we've cultivated together and the trust that's there and the flexibility it's now giving me by being able to delegate so much of these really critically important tasks to my business to my super valued offshore team members. So it's a journey, but I think it starts with that first step of trust and then being backed up by some good systems and processes that can help ensure that productivity as well.
I can remember years and years ago, I had wasn't an offshore staff member. They were in Australia, but they were remote. And she had worked for me for 5 years. Had this amazing relationship with her, but we had never met in
Yeah,
person. We had
yeah,
never
yeah,
met physically. And I remember I just adored her. She was so critical in the beginning stages of the growth of my business.
yeah,
Really, such a valuable person in my life. And just by chance, we had never had an opportunity to meet and connect in person. But when we did, it was the most wonderful experience because, um, I guess having this screen disconnecting you, is a
Yeah.
real skill to be able to maintain a relationship. But
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you meet in person, it was such a special moment because I could thank her in a I guess in a different way and just connect and spend time together. So it was really special, and I think building relationships with people, can be done online.
Yeah.
But geez, it's also very nice when you get to meet them and say, "Hey, thanks so much," and give them that big
Yeah.
hug or a
Oh,
good
it's
high
so
five.
special. It's so special,
Yeah.
and something we, you know, enjoy because obviously, not only do we make that opportunity for our clients of the offshore stuff, but obviously we've got a huge offshore team as well, and obviously taking that opportunity for us to personally connect as a leader is really valuable for me. But even seeing it with our clients, like our clients either visiting their offshore staff or having their offshore staff visit them in Australia, the stories, the you know the celebrations they enjoy together, because you're 100% right. If you're going to into battle with these really valuable colleagues day in day out, but never having met, that opportunity to finally connect can be super special. And yeah, even we had our Christmas party at the end of last year. We were fortunate to have a number of clients join us at the Christmas party to share that time with their staff. And yeah, it was just absolute joy, dancing on the dance floor, getting up to mischief together, after cultivating that relationship for years remotely, does provide some pretty special opportunities to connect. And I think some of those opportunities to connect are just so special. I know myself personally, we come together with our remote team every quarter. So every 90 days, we bring everyone together to share a week of just calibration, resetting strategy, but also just having lots of social opportunities together, karaoke, meals out, just sharing some good times to really invest in the robust culture of our team as well.
I am. You're very active on LinkedIn, and I see these great cultural events that you have
Yeah,
with your teams, and it's quite inspiring actually. And I wondered about the mechanics of how do you build culture within a remote team if you don't have that luxury to be able to be on site with them. So for people who are listening and they
yeah.
do have a remote team or they do have an offshore team, how can they what are some of the things they can do to ensure that the culture of the organization is being practiced and instilled when they're not there physically?
Yeah. Well, I think come well, a leadership lesson which I've always modelled. It's a John Maxwell, an absolutely amazing leadership coach. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. It's something I've always modelled in my own leadership. And certainly, I've seen this with clients who genuinely care for their staff, take an interest in them. It's not just about, here's the 10 things I want you to do today, but it's, hey, how was your weekend? Genuinely investing, how is your family? You told me that your mother's not well. How is she going? For those clients who genuinely care, and for their staff, it's just, it can be such a deeper relationship, and that culture that that binds them then is just so much stronger. And so I think developing that rapport and relationship, with your, whether it be an onshore staff member or offshore staff member, it's really same. If you invest in that relationship, care for that person, they in turn will care much more for what you know and what you need, and much more about the vision and mission that your business is looking to prosecute in the world as well. And so I think just that core fundamental part of being human, I think, is just so important. It's not lost offshore. Just because they're a few thousand kilometres away doesn't diminish their similarities, I suppose, in terms of, love of family, love of friends, love of, wanting to be healthy. We've got so much more that unites us than separates us. So I think investing in those commonalities and finding common ground, and caring for each other is such an important part of that.
I hear you talking so much about the people aspect and obviously being people partners, it makes sense. Um, I'm really curious around the impact AI has had on your organization, particularly being a global organization, and has that impacted on people's preferences around should I have outsourced to a human
Yeah.
or should I outsource to AI for my business? And I'd just love to know your thoughts around that.
Well, I think that the short answer is probably both. I think fundamentally we're an organisation that promotes profitability and efficiency, and offshore staffing is just one of the conduits to help that happen. Um, AI is another one, and we've spent a lot of professional development opportunities across the full breadth of staff in our employ around helping them level up in their AI awareness and AI skills. But I'm seeing it as a massive opportunity for all staff, whether they be onshore or offshore, to level up their capabilities. And certainly, if I just look at the offshore specifically, we're seeing roles that might not have necessarily been amazing delivered offshore. So something like copywriting might be an example, whereas now with the aid of AI, it can be done a lot more effectively. We're seeing clients stretch their staff a lot further up the food chain, I suppose, where they might not have said, okay, well, I'm not happy with you looking after all client communication, email communication back and forth. Whereas now, obviously, with whether it be ChatGPT or insert your own AI model, helping you copyright those emails and replying to clients. I'm really happy with you doing all of that. So right now, over the last sort of 18 months or so, we're seeing a leveling up of what offshore staff are doing. They're doing more responsibilities. They're taking on more obligations, I suppose, with their clients with the aid of AI, lifting them up. And so I think, as we fast forward through this AI journey, I think businesses investing in AI in their business to improve efficiency, that will invariably raise up all of their staff, and whether those staff are onshore or offshore, it will have that opportunity for them to move up the value chain and be able to deliver more valuable work.
That's a really great perspective, Ruben, because a lot of people are seeing AI as a threat. There's a big element of the
Fear.
business community is,
Yep.
threat and fear driven. Or what about if, am I going to have to let people go? Or, is this going to mean that I'm going to be let go? And a whole range of fear and threat. But what I love about that is you're actually saying that AI will level up. And I love that phrase that AI
Yeah.
will actually increase the capabilities of your team rather than you being scared by it. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really interested in one of your habits, actually, Ruben. I'm
Sure.
going to. You travel a lot, and as I said, very active on LinkedIn. Share your traveling stories a lot on there, which is so
Yeah.
inspiring. It just shows what the modern day workplace can look like. When people travel, when leaders travel, often it's all in or not in at all. And what I mean by that is they go and they just work solid. They just work, work, work.
Yeah.
Come home either exhausted and so they're not at their best when they return back to the office. I want to be interested in how, or I am interested, sorry, in how do you maintain your health and well-being when you travel so much? And as your organization continues to grow, how do you see this changing or developing?
Yeah. No, it's a real interesting topic. Something I work on a lot myself, because I'm really disciplined in how I approach my work and how I approach my leadership, and so really looking to carry that across into how I travel as part of my responsibilities with people partners. So my routine, I try and mirror wherever I am. So that's in terms of setting a bedtime and a get up time. So typically I try and get up 3 or 4 hours before have an obligation to get to. So if I work at the 9 o'clock time, so I would get up in Australia at 5 a.m. and then work for 2.5 hours and then exercise for an hour and a half ahead of that 9 o'clock meeting. And so I will look to do exactly the same. So whether I'm in the Philippines or I'm in the US, whether I'm in Canada, whether I'm in South Africa, I will follow that same routine. Um, and make sure that I'm still exercising every single day that I'm away. So in more or less the same style. I'm a runner and I do resistance exercise, so I'll do those same activities whilst I'm away. So I've done some amazing runs in some amazing locations, and also following my same sort of dietary stuff as well. So I'm one of those crazy OMADers, so 1 meal a day OMAD, and so I mirror that when I'm traveling as well. So the whole, I suppose, what I'm trying to do. So whilst the routine may have a natural gravitation to be disrupted through travel, I try and keep as much of the same stuff. So I try and keep my routine as consistent as possible.
That all sounds amazing, except for the one meal a day, Ruben. I I've been so engaged this whole conversation, but you
I've
completely
lost
lost
you.
me at that point. It's a real thanks for sharing all that because, I know one of the things obviously through the clients that I work with, they're people who are very overwhelmed, who feel very distracted by their work. They might be faced in sort of relentless change, and so they're
Yes.
feeling very pressured all the time. They're feeling like they can't keep up.
Yes. Yeah.
So hearing someone like yourself who's running a global company who has lots of staff, lots of people, lots of organizations, that health habits are important and central to the work that you do. And I would imagine too, by you doing that and by you sharing that, that your team also goes, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said for modeling, but I think I've always regarded it the discipline that any person trying to do something significant. So whether we've got the Olympics going on while this is being recorded, and so the discipline of an elite athlete, they're not rocking up to the Olympics on no sleep, eating a terrible diet. They're there to perform, and I've regarded my professional work as a way in which I'm performing, and so I care deeply about how I show up, and so that routine and that rigor is, I suppose, all aimed around to show up at my absolute best. And so whether that's showing up for leading and guiding my internal team, whether that's showing up to support clients, or whether that's showing up to at an event to speak or to exhibit or share what we're up to at People Partners. Just believe in that preparation is just such a critical part to how I perform, and how I perform ultimately is geared massively towards how the business is ultimately going to perform, and how my team are going to fall in line, I suppose, with the example I'm setting and leading.
Looking back over your career to date, has there been a lesson that stood out most for you, or one of those moments that you've gone, "Oh, I really wish I'd made a different decision at that point," or there was a moment in time that you see as really pivotal, whether it be a good or bad pivotal, but it was a lesson learnt for you, and would you be comfortable sharing that with us? Because I think hearing it from somebody who's in your position will be really valuable for everyone listening.
Yeah, I've had so many little junctures and inflection points in my career. And I suppose, if I reflect back, probably it's been the adversity striking that has been the most fundamental in changing the trajectory. Because I think when you're enjoying success, you have just an opportunity. You tend to just double up. You double down on that success and keep doing more of it. When crisis strikes, it forces massive change and shift in trajectory. And to be honest, that's part of the origins of People Partners. Back in 2014, we had operating another business. We had a massive change in that business. It was to do with the government contract, and that meant the only way I could see to survive was to move my head office from Brisbane in Queensland to Manila in the Philippines. And so within a 3-month period, we incorporated. I bought commercial real estate, onboarded 35 staff, and moved my family to the Philippines. And that would never have happened if we were just on a little steady up to the right trajectory of everything is awesome here. That happened because a massive inflection point, big, huge amount of adversity struck. And that was the way we chose to try and survive. And I think that's just been transformational in terms of my business journey. But I think that's an extreme example. But I think so often it's the adversity striking that forces a reaction that shapes your trajectory. When things are going well, or when things are succeeding, you have a tendency to do more of them. But it's mirroring and doubling down rather than changing direction.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that because I think a lot of times people think that success is just comes very like we know either it needs hard work or it just seems to be when you're looking at people from the outside that it's an easy cruise. But it's not until people share those pivotal moments that you go, actually, what I'm in at the moment, I feel stuck, but the next step could be the thing that I'm looking for. Or, I often see with people, Ruben, that they're either stuck in comfort or
Yeah.
stuck in discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the pain can be as equal in both.
Yeah. Oh,
But if you're stuck
absolutely.
in comfort, you can be very itchy, itchy hands are going, itchy feet going, I need to get moving.
Yeah.
Can actually be as overwhelming as being stuck in the discomfort.
Yeah. Most certainly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Ruben, I know you're a really big avid reader
I
in
am.
terms of
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with things that feed your mind, not just your body.
Yeah.
What is a book that you've read recently before we finish up that has been a recent game changer for you that you'd love to share?
Oh, game-changing book. I saw him speak recently, so it's probably got a proximity bias. But Matthew Pollard's books, he's got a couple of them. The Introvert's Edge, one is around sales, and one is around networking. And I found it really just it hit home. It was a great read, lots of takeaways, and it's really influenced how we're approaching some of the stuff at People Partners, but also myself as well, how I'm approaching some of my engagement at events and networking, etc. as well.
Don't you love how books can just change perspectives? I love it. um,
Absolutely.
Ruben, thank you so much. Our time's up. I
Been a
feel
pleasure,
I've got
Ange. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. I've got so many more questions I could ask, but I will make sure that we link everything that Ruben's discussed. We'll link to People Partners if you are somebody who's interested in cutting through some of the overwhelm you might be experiencing in your role and are looking to either scale or also to cut through some of the noise that you're currently feeling maybe stuck in. I'll link all that over to Ruben. But Ruben, thanks so much for your time here on Distracted.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Ange.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. You've been listening to Reuben Brennan, the CEO of People Partners, an offshore staffing solutions company. And we've been talking about how you, as an organization or a leader within an organization, how you can get more time, productivity, but also look after yourself and your team, whether it be onshore or offshore. I hope you've enjoyed this. If there's somebody who you know that would really benefit from listening to this, please send it over to them. It's always a really lovely act of gratitude and sharing things with somebody who you think is really struggling or they feel like they could benefit and grow and really scale their business. So thanks so much for sharing your time here with me on Distracted. And until next time, enjoy.